Yo, what's good, everybody? And happy Saturday, and welcome to the Hustle, Budget, and Glow podcast. I'm your host with the most, Shelbie Morgan, and I have an amazing guest today that I'm super excited to talk to. He's going to share a lot of gems and knowledge with you. Today's episode is called Dollars and Dating. I've been dying to do an episode about dating and money for the longest, and I found the perfect person. He is a relationship coach. He is a phenomenal author. He wrote this great book here that I can't wait to dive into about building relationships with people. And I'm super excited. Like, let's get into it. We're going to talk about some really amazing topics. Some are going to be trendy. Some might be a little cringe. Let's see how it goes. But we're going to have a lot of fun today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Tim. Tim, take it away. Tell people who you are. Tell people a little bit about yourself. And let's go and let's have a good time.
Shelby, so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. My name is Tim Molnar. I am a dating coach and author, and I use behavioral science and social psychology to help people understand how to date more strategically and with more intention. So I'm happy to talk about that, be here today, and talk about that overlap between dating and dollars.
Hey, I love it. Okay, Tim, what made you get into the dating game? Tell me more.
So I think in the academic world, so I spent a long time in academia. We have a little catchphrase that says research is me search. And so, like with many things, I think we explore problems that feel very personal to us. And dating was certainly one of those for me, where I sat down one day and thought about what my perfect day looked like in 5 years. And in going through that exercise, I realized that a life partner was instrumental to that. And I wanted to understand if there was more that I could do, more intentionality that I could bring into the process to make that happen. And so that was sort of the origin story of how I got into dating. And then it really just grew from there.
Tim, I love that. A key word that you said was intentionality. I think being intentional in dating is super important. And I think a lot of people don't put intention into other aspects of their life, let alone dating. Why do you think intention is key to making a relationship work?
I think intention is important in so many different aspects of life, and I think it comes naturally in a lot of realms. We think about building a business, we know that we have to go out and do business development, we need to meet people, we need to uplevel our skills, and in school, in our career, so many of these aspects, we understand that we get what we put into it. And I think there's this misconception about dating or about relationships in general, and perhaps this is a Hollywoodization of what relationships should be. That there's supposed to be these meet cutes that end in marriage, and then it's always happily ever after. And of
Right.
course, we know that they're a lot more complicated than that. That they require a lot of work, intentionality. They need to be cultivated, and so my thought is, why would we approach this in any other way than with the utmost intentionality and honor this part of our lives that is key to so much happiness and so much fulfillment?
I agree. I think one of the main things that you said was cultivation, right? And so I think a lot of people confuse cultivation with curation. Like relationships are not an art gallery. And I love curating things, curating the vibe in my home, curating the vibe on my podcast. But to cultivate something is very different. The words have two different meanings. So I love that you said relationships you have to cultivate versus something you have to curate, which is curation is all about creating a vibe and a theme. And relationship is way more than that. Any relationship you build is not an art show, it's not an art gallery. And while those things are very important and people put a lot of work into them, being with somebody is totally different. It's night and day. My parents are on the call, and they have been together since my mom was in eighth grade. I think my dad made an illegal U-turn on the beach in Galveston, something like that. And some way or another, she kept him around for all these years. So maybe they should be doing the show. I have no idea. Probably not, honestly. But definitely, like you said, it's not what you see on social media. My dad said exactly. Okay, so oh my God, y'all are hilarious. Okay, well, I do have some topics that I want to get into. The first one has been a trend on social media. I am not a fan of this because I think it was made from a place of competitiveness, which I don't believe in relationships. And it's the 50-50 trend, right? People have been going crazy on the 50-50 trend, saying that couples should split things right down the middle. And I just don't understand where this mentality came from because 50-50 is not about money. 50-50 is about everything you put into the household. It's just 100-100 to me. Everybody puts something in, but people are so caught up on salaries and who should pay what. But it's not about how much you spend or the amount of bills you pay. It's really about what you do in the relationship as a whole. That's my thought behind it. But why do you think people are so caught up on this 50-50 trend? I think it's crazy. Tell me, what have you seen and what have you heard about this? What are your thoughts?
I think it's very seductive to be able to take this reductionist framing and say, what can we measure? We can measure what your salary is and we can measure what my salary is.
Hmm.
Measuring emotional input, measuring how much we're both contributing to the social planning of our lives, how much we're showing up when someone's having a hard day, that's a much trickier metric. And we don't have utils of emotional support that we can say, well, you put in 12 utils this week and I put in 12 utils, and so we're
Right.
equivalent. But it is easy to say, we show up for dinner and this is what the bill comes out to. How much are you paying? How much am I paying? And so I think we like to have this false sense of equality that accounting with money can create. And it sounds fair
Right.
to say, you pay half, I pay half, but that's not intimacy. That's
Right.
accounting.
That's accounting at the end of the day. And people are so caught up on it. I guess the main thing is once you marry somebody, everything's everybody. It's the household, right? Like I can promise you, my parents are not doing the math on who brought water or eggs last week. That is not important to them. That is not what keeps somebody together. And people are matching salaries and counting salaries, but I know plenty of people that work in the tech space that make six figures and they're rich broke. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because you make a certain salary that you're keeping that money or you're able to actually do something with it in a relationship. So people need to also look at that. How much you make is not how much you keep. And so people are doing the math all wrong. I don't think it should matter if I make more or you make less, long as we work hard, long as we're passionate about something. For me, I prefer someone that's also entrepreneurial and doesn't just have a 9 to 5. Have a 9 to 5, but do something else that brings you joy. So for me, I'm looking for ambition. And when it comes to money, I think we're all at the age now, well, at least for me in my early 30s, where we're all pretty, or should be pretty settled where we are in our careers and growing. And, making more money is always going to be there, but making more intentional decisions around the people we spend time with is even more important because it's all about partnership. We should be, what can we do with both of our incomes to build something long term, right? And I don't want to sit at a restaurant and do math or do a calculator. Okay. If you want to pay today, great. Maybe I'll pay next time. It's not that serious to sit up here and calculate and split tabs. Like, I think people are just lost with this trend. Again, I think it's really stemming from social media. I don't think it's stemming from reality because I promise you, millennials in their household or Gen Zers, they didn't grow up that way. Like, that's not how their parents raised them to think about relationships in a math or accounting dynamic. So, that's my hot take. What do you think?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we often want to boil relationships down into equal effort, and I think the more interesting metric is mutual effort. Are we both showing up and giving our all as often as we can? And some days I'm going to show up at 30% and I'm going to need you to come in at 70%, and other days that's going to flip flop. I think there's a natural seasonality to life, and
Mhm.
if we're just thinking about dollars, salary, contribution in a financial sense, it gives us this really myopic perspective on the relationship, which I think can be really harmful and stifle growth both personally and together. And just to kind of take a example, I think a lot of the audience here might be entrepreneurs, startup founders, and so there are times where just the nature of a startup is you don't have a ton of cash when you're starting up, and someone may have a more reliable W 2, and your income potential 5 years from now, 10 years from now, may be much higher. And there's
Right.
like a stronger risk tolerance that you might have as a founder. And it's really nice to be able to have that balance. And I don't think it's fair to say just because I'm investing in something right now and don't have the 6 figure income that I'm not contributing equally. There's this
Right.
idea of mutual effort. I'm showing up, I'm building something, you're showing up, you're building something, and most importantly, we're trying to build something together and complement each other best we can.
100%. Like income fluctuates, right? People get laid off, people leave their jobs to become entrepreneurs. Income can be up and down, but like you said, that person that you don't want to bet on because maybe they make 60,000 a year, they're working on building their brand and you make 130, 150, but the effort is there. They treat you with respect, they're kind, they are caring, they show up in other ways, but they're not matching your salary exactly. But the effort and their hustle and their ambition is there. They're just working towards something different than you. And in 5 years from now, you might miss out on that person, right? They might be making 5 million and you're still at your 150, but you didn't give them opportunity because you felt like they weren't where you're at. And I think people, like you said, measure things from an accounting standpoint when they should measure everything from effort, ambition, hustle, treatment, respect. All those things matter way more at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, if you're working hard and you're saving and you're investing in yourself and your financial future, then who is anybody to say that you're not doing good enough, right? I don't even know, again, where that ideation comes from, but that's the world we live in. So, thank you for hopping on that 50-50 train with me. I hope people really um, take into consideration the things that we said, bet on people not for where they're at, but for where they can be, and look at their drive, look at what they're doing right there and now, not what you think they're going to be doing in 5 years. I mean, that matters too, but for the most part, intuition can tell you that. But thank you for tapping into that. And the next topic I wanted to talk about, which is kind of something we mentioned earlier, is does income matter, right? If honesty, communication, and alignment are there, does the income gap matter so much in a relationship?
There's some interesting research on this. Back in 2010, the late psychologist Daniel Kahneman put out a paper that's been cited quite a bit, and it looked at this idea of how does income affect our overall well-being, our happiness? Does money really lead to more fulfillment? And what they find is yes, it does, up to a certain point. So back then it was about $75,000 was the limit past which they really didn't see an uptick in overall happiness. So adjusted to today's dollars, that's probably 110,000 in that ballpark.
Right.
And having some type of stability does reduce a lot of life's stressors. It means, if I break a tooth, I can go to the dentist without having to worry about can we pay the electricity this month? And it means that I can have a reliable form of transportation without worrying if it does break down, do I have a rainy day fund? So reducing these stressors does contribute to our happiness. It allows us to be more emotionally well regulated. It allows us to show up in relationships and be more empathetic, be more caring. But ultimately, there is a very real gap beyond which we don't have any real marginal benefit. So once our basic necessities are met and we have our food, we have our shelter, we're able to take our kids to daycare and free up a little more space for us to maybe have a date night, then these things don't matter a lot. So I think it's easy to fixate on, but we really don't need to look too hard to think about a lot of examples of people, a lot of billionaires. When we look at them and say, like, do these people seem happy to you? And a lot of them would readily admit that they're not. And so I think it's really a false proxy for what we derive happiness from. And there's just very clear research on that being a misnomer past a certain point.
100%. I think one of the main things you said is look at the cost of living, look at the income versus, however many years ago when it was at 75K and now it's at 110K for people's happiness. You don't need $1 billion to be happy. Like you said, like you can afford a roof over your head. You can eat the quality food you want. You can go and spend time with your friends. You can travel when it makes sense to you. Like you're comfortable. Like you're good. You don't want for anything. You have medical care. Like you can go have dinner. You can do date night. Like you're comfortable. You're happy. You have the right people. You're in the right community, and you make enough to even put some away and invest. So $1 billion doesn't necessarily bring joy. Maybe, if anything, it just takes more of your time. So people really got to define what happiness is to them. And yes, cost of living is always going to be going up. And yes, the amount you need to make is going to change in order to actually live comfortably. But at the end of the day, the math is there, like you said. And beyond a certain point, it doesn't mean making more is going to bring you a new ounce of joy. You might actually feel more burnt out. Maybe you're going to be able to have to give more time to that job or to that business plan in order to make more. Maybe that drains you. Maybe that's where your joy is not being felt. So thank you for sharing that. That was extremely helpful, and a great way to go over the topic. So next up. dating someone who is financially aligned, which is totally different from dating somebody with the same salary or higher salary than you. This is all about being aligned when it comes to finances as a couple. And I want to ask you, why is it smart to be with somebody who shares your money and mindset goals, number one? And how do mismatches in financial values show up early?
I love that word that you used there of values because I think money is never just about money. It's about control, it's about values, our priorities, freedom. And so, again, we can use it as a false proxy, but when we dig a little bit deeper and go under the surface, we realize what values are coming out. And we can like we all know plenty of people who do well financially and they're not generous. And on the other end of the spectrum, we can think of people who don't have a lot, but will give you the shirt off their back. And so I think what we're really looking for very early on is this person generous? Is this person kind? Is this person trustworthy? And there are certain ways in which that shows up in a spending context. And we can look at whether someone is leaving a tip after they get their coffee and whether they're saying thanks to the waiter when they bring something over. And so there are ways, whether we have a lot of money or not, that we can express these more important traits. We can show that we're generous. We can show that we're empathetic and we're looking after other people. And these are the things that really matter. And I would hope that your parents who are listening on this, when they think about, what are really the fundamental values that have led to this lasting marriage over decades and decades, it's that emotional stability, it's the kindness, it's the generosity, it's your parents knowing that they're going to show up for each other when they've had a rough day or they got laid off or whatever it might be. And again, early on, these do manifest, and I think they can manifest in a lot of financial ways, but we really need to be looking not at the dollars and cents of it, but what the underlying intention is behind that.
100%. I totally agree. I'm sure my parents would agree. And yeah, generosity at the end of the day is what matters. I'll definitely say my parents are very generous toward me for sure. I definitely have received on the back end from their generosity, especially financially coming up as a kid and in college and even into my adult life. So definitely have seen that. And for them, if anything, I feel like my parents look at financing as an investment when you help somebody else. And I definitely don't think they would invest or give money to someone or something that they didn't believe in, right? So, I don't want to speak for them, but I definitely feel like that's how they see things. And when you love someone, when you care about them, you definitely bet on them. And I definitely feel like that's how they look at things in our household. Like everything's an investment for the future, for the family, no matter what they're putting the money into, whether it's education or something at the house. It could be the deck in the backyard, or if something breaks, like everybody needs AC in the house. And I feel like the AC breaks a lot at our house for some reason. Um, and my dad loves to pay for it, I'm sure. But, at the end of the day, it just comes down to, like you said, that intentionality aspect, that grace aspect. And I really like what you said about tipping people when you go out, like how you treat somebody at a restaurant. Like I look at all that if I date someone. Like if you're rude to somebody at the restaurant, the wait staff, the person making your coffee, I already don't want to be around you because you don't know that person's story. They could be a millionaire and they just like making coffee, like, or they could be a college student. You don't know where they're at. So disrespecting someone is a non-negotiable because money should never make you be unkind. And like the control factor, you can't use money to control somebody because no matter what, if they want to leave, they're going to leave. Right. They might stay for a short amount of time, but once they're fed up with you and your money, you can't do anything else for them mentally, they're gone, so you're better off being kind, and being respectful for sure. So that was great. Thank you so much for that.
And maybe just one thing that I'd add about the point with generosity. I think we can definitely show our generosity through money, but more fundamentally, when we look at what we can never have more of, which of course is time, I think one of the ways that we can most truthfully show our generosity is what are we willing to do with this very limited resource of the minutes and days and hours that we have on this planet. And someone who comes from a low income background and is willing to come over and like help you paint the inside of your house or help you move or do these things that frankly you just need help with. I think that can be, like you said, even early on in a relationship, a way to demonstrate these values that track for long term compatibility much more than just saying, hey, I'll grab dinner tonight. And I think that can be another great way to show generosity. But someone who has a lot of money and is willing to spend an extra $25, that may actually be a much less generous act than someone who's willing to take a Saturday to, help you refinish the patio in your backyard.
100%, because they have the money, right? But do they have the time, right? I also think, again, like showing those acts of kindness is really super important, right? Like you said, like dinner is great. Who doesn't love to be wine and dine taking a dinner? I love a dinner date. Please take me to dinner. I love it. Pick me up. I'll be ready by 6:30. But when I really need you to show up, like, are you gonna come to my podcast show? Are you gonna show up and support me? Are you gonna log on? Like, I have a bakery business. Can you come help me set up and take down, or either or? Can you help me out with that? If I have to move, can you help me pack? Like, those kind of things matter to me more than what you can spend on me at dinner, what you can buy me, or the vacation you can take me on. Because regardless, I can do those things myself. But when I really need you in a situation where it shows effort, that's what I look at long term. Because if I'm going to marry you, are you going to be able to show up if something breaks in the household? Are you going to be able to show up if we have a child and they have a game? Can you come to the game? Like, all those things start with what you do when I first meet you. So again, those things are very important. And time is generosity. Oh my God, my dad, he's probably eating this up. His favorite thing to say, the one thing you can't get at the ATM machine is time. He
Love
loves it.
that.
Honestly, he should tattoo it on his neck. He loves to say it. But you really can't get more time. So the time you spend with people is valuable, and you should be kind to them, and you should be gracious with the time you give. So thank you for that. Okay, this is the next question. So this topic is, if you're financially stable, shouldn't they be too? For me, I'm going to say yes, but financial stability looks different for other people. But I do value and I do desire, and there's a non negotiable for you to be financially stable for me personally. But that does not mean that you make more than me, or I make more than you. That's not how I look at financial stability. Um, and the next question is, what happens when you're leveling up and they're not? So that's how I look at it. If you are not trying to be better in your element as a person and go after goals outside of your job or within your job, if you're just stagnant, for me, that means you're not financially stable. Because I'm Shelbie Hustle Morgan. But hustle is seasonal. I don't want to always hustle. I'm in my 30s. I like to relax and scale back. But I do really need a partner that values work ethic. So if you don't value work ethic and you're lazy in one way or another, that to me can hinder our financial stability and our growth. That's my personal viewpoint, but I want to hear your viewpoint and what you've seen and heard from other people.
I think a mismatch in trajectory can build resentment. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, zeroing in a little bit on this word of stability, I think we can take, like you were saying, a broader definition of what stability means, and financial stability is certainly one important piece. And I could also see someone who maybe has less hustle in a money making fashion being an amazing partner who says, on those days when you really need someone to show up and offer that encouragement, that emotional support, where things with the business just aren't coming along as quickly as you hoped, and they're able to be there and be your biggest cheerleader, that can be, I think, so much more powerful in some cases than someone who is just paralleling you and saying, well, I'm also building these things, and you have these conversations where you're talking about things that are feeling difficult or exciting in your business. They're talking about what's feeling difficult or exciting in their business. But really, you can be having these two separate conversations as opposed to coming together and understanding that that stability is that ability to support one another in the way that feels most important and most valuable in those moments.
100%, definitely in those moments. And I think, like you said, you could be having two different conversations when you should be having one, right? And so I think that's where you try not to get lost, and you talk with the intention to listen as well as to receive, what they're saying, and not just to speak next. So I think that has a lot to do with it. For me, like I said, with financial stability, I'm looking at your ability to save for the next 10 to 20 years. Like we're all going to get older. I don't want to be 70 holding the door open at Walmart. That's not a goal of mine. I want to relax and enjoy the time that I have left. So I'm really big on planning for my future now instead of regretting the time that I didn't do it when I had the chance later. So I'm looking for financial stability at that opportunity at this age. So if somebody's in their 30s and they're just blowing money and spending it fast and they're not saving any and they can't live with it, they can't live beneath their means, that is not somebody I want as a partner because arguments are going to come up. The effort is going to come up. But how you described it and what you said about just being intentional with what we're both doing with the showing up factor, those are two completely different things because we can both show up differently and both still be financially stable. But, nothing's getting cheaper around here. The economy isn't, getting any lighter. So I definitely prefer a partner that, does plan with a future in mind because the older you get, the less energy you get, your health changes. So I want to make sure I'm investing now, for the future. And again, that's what my alignment looks like, not salary, not who's paying for dinner, but in the next 10, 20, 30 years, will we be able to relax and just enjoy our life in our 60s or are we struggling to get by? I'm just looking at that from a standpoint of I've never had to struggle in that capacity and I don't want to have to do it. So, again, people look at things really differently, but I do appreciate you, giving that perspective. It really helped me look at things in a different way because I wasn't necessarily looking at financial stability in the way you described it. I'm always looking at things from a dollars and numbers standpoint because that's me. I'm the MBA girly. I'm the financial nerd. Like I'm counting. So, but it's nice sometimes to really just take a step back and not look at everything from numbers. And I need to do that more often after hearing you for sure. That's super important. Okay. So this is another question. And this is mine personally because I have this, stipulation and it's sometimes difficult for me to want to talk to someone that doesn't have this. So hustle compatibility. I am Shelbie Hustle Morgan. I love to hustle. Okay. I can make a dollar in my sleep. But when dating someone that doesn't have the same drive as you, how do you approach that? Because everyone's not going to have the same drive as me. I'm driving no matter what. I'm hitting 80 on the freeway.
No, I love that. And I want to actually just turn the question around for a second, if I can, and ask
Yeah.
you first for a definition on what hustle means to you.
That's such a good question. I love it. I should put it on a t-shirt. Hustle to me means that no matter what happens to you in your life, you get up, you shake it off, and you're always 10 toes down. I have had ups and downs in my life, but I have never given up on myself or the goals that I have. But a lot of times I've met people and something has deterred them, a relationship, a job, a health situation, and they get stuck in that and they don't keep going. So for me, hustling is never giving up on me, it's betting on me. So I have that energy and that drive to continue no matter what life throws at me, because life is going to throw stuff at you no matter what. So to have someone in my life that doesn't suffer well is not somebody I want in my corner because I think it's really important to know how people suffer. How do you handle adversity? Because that's going to affect our relationship. So if you can't grind out the good and the bad times, then that's just not something that I think would work for me because I'm going to want to get up. I'm very solution oriented. I'm going to make a way no matter what. So that's how I look at hustle. And making a way could be something as simple as praying, finding a community that supports you, going to your family. And some people don't even want to do that. They don't even want to have the conversation, the tough conversation. So to me, that's what hustling looks like in a relationship and in my everyday life. I hope that was helpful.
No, I love that answer. And it does frame some of my thoughts here too, because I think people express ambition in different ways. And one person expresses it by building a startup, and another person expresses it by building a family and investing in that. And I think one of the things that you'd said that stuck out to me in that definition there was hustle means not giving up on myself. And there could be a partner who says, my version of hustle is not giving up on us. And so
I like that.
I think someone who's willing to dig in when things get tough, and for you, that may be, I'm willing to make 100 more sales calls this week because Q3 is coming to an end and my numbers aren't quite where they want to be.
Right.
And there could be, the perfect partner out there who says, I'm going to show up and not give up on us. And so even though there's a lot of stress that's coming up right now with this mismatch between expectations of what these numbers were going to be and the reality of where it's looking like they're coming in at, we can still go out to dinner. We can have a picnic. We don't need to go to the Michelin star restaurant. We can say, hey, great, yeah, money's a little bit tighter this week, and we're still not going to give up on us. We're not going to let this bleed into our dynamic here. We're going to take the night off. We're going to head over to the park. We're going to bring the blanket, and we're going to bring, some crackers from Trader Joe's and a little cheese, and have this great, have this great evening together. And so I think that ambition can still be there, but just
Right.
manifest in different ways. And, someone else might invest that into community. And as long as there's, I think, a respect, and that's like a really key part here, that what you are ambitious about does not necessarily need to be the exact things that I am ambitious about, but I appreciate that you're willing to grow, that you're willing to do the work, that you're willing to invest in the things that are important to you. I think that's really what it can boil down to.
I agree. Yeah, I've never thought about it in the light of what I'm ambitious about might not be what you're ambitious about, and that is something I will definitely take forward when it comes to dating. Dating is very different in your 30s because I'm set in my ways. I'm also an only child. I'm a Scorpio, so I like what I like. I, honor my routine, my morning routine. I'm very strategic, and you're right. I don't have to always look at everything with such red tape, and how somebody hustles in their ambition could be different because you know what, you're right. We don't have to always eat at the Michelin star restaurant. And I love a charcuterie board and some Cabernet from Trader Joe's. Sign me up if you're listening. Come get me, or I'll meet you there. Whatever, we can bike or walk. That's fine, as long as the weather is decent. But 100%, I have to understand that people have value and ambition in other ways, and I guess I'm always looking for somebody to match my ambition in my way, and maybe they do match it just in their own way, showing the us factor, and not so much the individual factor. So thank you for that, Tim. I appreciate that. I'm definitely going to look at things in more of that light for sure.
And one thing that strikes me when you talk about getting older and how we become more set in our ways, there's a dating coach who also is a behavioral scientist over at Hinge who I've heard say that coming together early on, you meet in high school, you're 17, it's like two startups coming together and they merge, and, no one has their own HR department yet, no one has their own accounting firm. So you're happy to kind of build these things together. And
Right.
then the more you grow individually, or in this analogy, the more you grow your business, now you have the HR department, now you have the accounting, now you have your employees, you have your set ways of doing things in the business, and now it's more like this big merger and acquisition. And we know these things can be more difficult because we are set in our ways. We have very clear ideas of what this should look like, how we should run our business, how we should run our life. And
Right.
so I think it's just that added piece of recognizing that people may have different ways of being, and
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that they're wrong. It may just
Right.
mean that we have developed these thought patterns about what is unequivocally the right way to do things. And being willing to be curious with that, I think, is such a often overlooked part of self-development, which is maintaining this curiosity, this openness around other worldviews, and the fact that our worldviews naturally become more myopic if we're not very intentional with opening that lens.
100%. I like what you said about being curious for sure. I agree with that. Definitely being more curious in the dating realm can open up more doors to you that you might have been closing off. So I'll practice more curiosity for sure.
Well, and I think just by the fact you have, different guests on here, you're always asking questions, you are at your core an incredibly curious person. So this is not a difficult, this is not a difficult thing for you.
I am super curious. One of my traits from Myers Briggs is I'm a learner and ideation. So I'm always curious. I'm always wanting to learn. And I guess when it comes to dating, I'm just much more fine tuned. I have these set things. I have a list, right? But I do need to be more curious with those elements because nothing really attributes to a list at the end of the day. A list can vary. It's going to be bullet points and dashes and highlights and markouts and redrafts. So, curious at heart, but definitely can be curious in other ways. And I like what you said about different departments. We could have different departments at this company, right? Maybe I probably just have HR and marketing and sales. Maybe they're doing quality assurance, okay, and content creation, okay. Maybe we just have different departments in the whole, but we can all come together for the annual meeting, to say the least. So definitely we'll look at things that way. And so this is another topic. This is something you presented to me of what have you planned your love life like your business with strategy and intention, ROI? What would that change if you looked at your love life like that?
I think it can have a big outsized return because we often approach love in this it'll happen when it happens fashion. And again, we don't apply that lens to business. We have clarity, we have strategy, we look at ROI, and I think those can often be unromantic notions when we apply them to a dating context. But I actually think it's really romantic to say I'm willing to invest, strategize, and be able to take action in alignment with what I want. Because then, when I'm 40 and we're sitting and we're doing our taxes together and laughing, that to me is really romantic. That's lovely. And so, I think there are little things that we can do each and every day that show that we're being strategic. We can make sure that we're getting out of our houses, getting out of our routines. And if we only go to one coffee shop, we're likely bumping into the same people, or always going to the 5 p.m. on Tuesday yoga class, we're bumping into the same 5 p.m. on Tuesday yoga crowd. And
Right,
so we can think a little bit more strategically, the same way that if you're running the same content creation strategy and you're not getting the metrics that you're hoping for, you're going to switch up. Okay, maybe this needs to be more of a storytelling angle, or maybe I was using reels and really the right thing to be doing is, um, you know,
strategy
some
manipulation.
different. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so I think we can use a lot of these same frameworks, and I talk about this a little bit in the book. Is the off-cited Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule that we think about in business, and we're like, what are those few little things that I can do today to really move the needle? And we can use a similar framing in our dating life. And so, if it is that I go out for a walk with my dog every day after work, and I never stop by the dog park where there are 50 other single people with their dogs, this is a pretty small ROI to open myself up to a lot of different people.
right.
And and similarly, I kind of talk about this too. Is we can be very I think it's very tempting to be highly efficiency oriented and think, if I just do my shopping on, Saturday, and then I can meal prep for the whole week and I never need to go back. And that's great. It means that like you can sit in front of your computer and like slam down your morning protein shake as you're sending off all of your emails.
Right.
But what you're missing out on is what if you did little shops, and this is how a lot of other countries think about shopping, and they do little shops all throughout the week. You're naturally crossing paths with more people. You're more likely to have that run in the checkout line where, someone asks you about some obscure purchase there, and this turns into a conversation, and maybe that becomes a person that you're interested in going out with. And so we can think about just like these little shifts where it doesn't need to be us upending our schedule, but maybe on the way back from the gym, we naturally pass by the grocery store anyway, and we choose to stop by and grab a bunch of bananas and see if there's anyone who we might be interested in saying hi to.
I really like that. And that is something I am working on more because, again, I am super routine. You can ask my parents, do not bother me before 10:30. I need my coffee, my dog walk, and my workout. Please don't talk to me. I will literally look at you like you're crazy. Again, I had no siblings. I had no one to debate this. I just did whatever I wanted growing up, which was my time. So, I definitely go to my same places. I take my same path. But as of late, especially now, I'm in my mid 30s, I have, especially this year, decided to put myself in places that are, yes, things I want to do, but not necessarily at the same place over and over again. One of the biggest things is like trying different fitness communities. I will go to the same classes on ClassPass at the same places I like to go to, but I've been going to a lot more community fitness events now. And I went to two different run clubs, one last weekend, one this weekend. Last weekend was a walk club, and met amazing people. I met new people to be friends with. And, that was one thing. Friendship is one thing. Those are also relationships as well versus a partnership. So just putting myself in different environments and trying something new, still working out, but just in a different place and switching up has been really, really good. And the grocery thing really had me cracking up because I'm the person, one day I'm gonna go do my curbside, I'm gonna open my trunk, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna meal prep twice a week, and that's it. But I'm like, I do like going to the farmer's market. Let me go to the farmer's market. Let me go to Sprouts. Let me try Central Market. I have been switching it up and I have to buy everything in bulk and just being out and just seeing and interacting and crossing paths with different people, like you said, because that is really the only way you can meet people. Just trying different things out. Like I said, I'm very curious. I'm just very strategic in my routine, but a routine can still be a routine, even if you alter it and shift it just a smidge. You got to do it in business. So, I'm working on doing it more in my own life. So I'm glad you said that, but I'm like, oh my God, this man is talking about me.
No, and
So,
I think you hit the nail on the head there with I can still have my routine and this doesn't need to be incompatible with
right.
variety and openness. And I can say, great, my routine is going to be that every Tuesday and Thursday between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m., I try a new activity. And that is
Yeah.
the routine. And that routine is great. This week it's this run club. Next week it's that walking club. Then I'm going to go to pottery class. Then I'm going
Right.
to, you know, a Dungeons and Dragons club or whatever it might be, you know? And so I don't know if you necessarily strike me as the type, but it's just like putting yourself in these situations still within like the comfortable framework. Cause I'm someone who loves routines too. So I'm very sympathetic to that idea of like, okay, this is what I do in the morning and I don't want to have to budge on that a lot. But I think building in these routines that feel comfortable for you but still
Right.
open up, and it sounds like that's exactly what you've been doing. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's a good reminder for me. I love sometimes just like rereading passages of my book and getting inspiration. It sounds kind of egotistical, but just having this idea of, yes, I need to be doing this day to day as
Right.
well, and like I need to continue to build these new communities and experience new things. And yeah, so
There's
um,
nothing wrong with that. I mean, I go back and I like to journal a lot, and I journal in my notebook or on my phone, and I write what I'm thinking a lot. That's like how I meditate, by writing. I'm a writer at the end of the day, right? I went to school as a liberal arts PR major, right? Like I just happen to like business as well, but I write down all my thoughts, and I go back and look at thoughts that I wrote down 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and I see how my mind has grown and how I've changed so much. Like I'm still Shelby Hustle Morgan, just in a more like soft life. I have a much like softer mindset now. Everything doesn't have to be done in a rush or accomplished quickly, and I'm a lot more open to change. And that's just because I've changed the world around me, like you said, just putting myself slowly but surely in different spaces and interacting with people who don't have to think like me. And I think that's really important. So, I'm starting to slowly but surely do the same thing for dating, and be more open and more curious. So, um, that goes into our next topic, which is date like a founder, not like an employee, and what that shift that looks like. So, what do you think like about that? Because I feel like I think like an entrepreneur and not an employee. So, how do you date like a founder and not an employee? What does that mindset shift look like?
so I think as a founder, you're creating direction. You don't have a fixed schedule. Every day you wake up and you have to choose the things that are going to hopefully be most productive, that are going to give you the best return on your time. And employees, on the other hand, sit and they wait for direction. And so when we apply this to dating, we can think about, how can I be that founder creating direction for myself, giving myself those weekly reminders to go try that new pickleball club. And when we do that, I think we just open ourselves up to a lot more. So I think it's really just this fundamental mindset about how we're willing to be strategic and take action and approach this from a place of I don't have direction, but I can give myself direction, and that's really I think the founder mentality of needing to create something where it does not currently exist without clear bounds and
I,
being comfortable in that space.
that is such a creative entrepreneurial mentality. We do not wait for direction. I don't have time for that. Absolutely not. What? Even at work, I'm like, I'm not going to wait to get something done. I'm going to be reviewing my notes. Even if I have a break, I'm going to be taking some type of action interaction. And that is the same way I think in every other part of my life. So I 100% agree with you on that, and making that effort. So I think that brings us to our next topic to make it full circle is how to make dating feel less like a job and more like an investment. So you can bring that excitement out, right? You have this creator entrepreneur mindset when it comes to dating and running a business, but how do you make it not feel like work? Because dating can feel like a job. I don't want that. I don't have time. I already have a job too. So no.
Dating can definitely feel like a job, and I think moreover, dates can feel like job interviews.
Ah,
And
yes,
we have all been there where we sit down on a first date and we slide our proverbial resume across the desk and say, here are a list of my attributes, here are a list of your attributes. How many brothers and sisters do you have? Where are you from? Where am I from? And it feels very stale. And similarly with what can happen in interviews, we have our scripts that we like to rely on. We say, oh, okay, yeah, it was so impactful. And the biggest thing that I learned, one time I made a mistake, but I learned from it. And it's these scripted responses that just don't feel genuine and they also don't
right.
feel like a lot of fun. And so I think it's being willing to show up to that date and be able to reframe that a little bit and think about how can we make this fun, because a date should be fun and we get a chance to sit down and have someone's undivided attention who is a total stranger to us and can teach us so much, and being curious and also being willing open to share really changes that dynamic. And I think some of those specific action items that we take, because I think we can speak about this in generalities, but what's more interesting to me is what does that application look like in person? And, I think going into a date and picking up just like you would with a friend, where like when you pick up with a friend, you're coming in and you're like, oh my gosh, sorry, like I just have to tell you about this,
Right.
ridiculous thing that happened. I was riding my bike over here and there was this prairie dog that ran out in front of me and like I had to swerve to the left. And like and you're jumping into this story and you're not starting from a place of, and how many brothers and sisters do you have? And that just becomes a lot more of a natural environment. It sort of diffuses the tension. It takes this job interview mentality or energy out of the whole equation, and it becomes something where like, I am just having fun sharing something that I thought was really interesting, goofy, weird, whatever, and
Right.
it licenses the other person. It sort of like puts them at ease. They're like, oh, thank God we're not having the resume discussion. And like they'll find out what you
Right.
do and they'll find out, you know, things about your family later on down the road if you have fun. But if you don't create those initial conditions to have that spark because we are busy, it can feel very tempting to say, great, this wasn't an initial click and so I'm going to walk away from this. But rather I'd encourage it to be something where you think carefully about how do you create that right date energy. And if you're coming right out of a busy meeting, you're probably carrying a lot of that energy in there. So maybe you need to listen to a little like Psych Up playlist or go for a run or do whatever it is that gets you into a more fun mindset, so that when you show up, you're not carrying some of that vestigial energy into that interaction.
I like that fun mindset. Yeah, dating does feel like an interview. What's your favorite color? Where did you go to school? Where do you work? I mean, yeah, I'm gonna need that information at some point, but let's just have fun and get to know each other on this first date, right? Because I don't want to be bored. Once I'm bored, I lose interest. And maybe it could have been a click, but rather it's a clack because we just sat here and did star interviews on our first date. So I definitely feel like, yeah, maybe pump yourself up, do something fun, do something exciting to make sure that first date energy is there. So I love that. And that natural feeling that you just talked about. Now we're going to pivot to something that is not so natural, which is online dating and people paying for online swipes. Is it worth it? Are we getting scammed? I'm not on any online dating profiles, but I have friends that do it. I have a friend that she met her partner of the past, what, almost 3 years on there. And, it happens. You can find love online. I'm just not looking for it. But what do you think about the dating apps? And should people be paying the swipe left or right? Because it's like they're trying to have you pay a monthly bill just to meet somebody that could be crazy. What do you think?
So I think dating apps are great introduction tools,
Okay.
but like so many things, they are great servants and terrible masters. So when we fall into these traps of seeking these intermittent dopamine spikes from someone matching with us, we fall into these addiction patterns. We start to get very preoccupied, burnt out, and we see that. There was a study that came out about a year ago this time. It said 84% of people who have dated online have been burnt out. And so, but at the same time, more people meet online than meet any other way right now. We know that. Michael Rosenfeld's a sociologist over at Stanford. He studies these things. And since 2017, that's been true. And
Really?
so
I didn't
it's,
know that.
yeah.
They're meeting more online for dating than they do in person. That's crazy to me, Tim.
So than any other means. So what they did was they bisected this into met at a bar, met through a church community, met through sports, met online. And I think as of 2017, it was 39% had met online, and that has grown even more since then. And
Wow.
so the question I think then becomes, I think this is an important piece of the overall dating repertoire. I think we are burnt out, and so if you're feeling burnt out, it's time to reassess what you're doing, how you're doing it, and getting back to this value-based dating mindset. What do you value? And if money is a proxy for what it is that we value and we can spend that in alignment with our values, then I think there is an interesting question around, does it make sense to pay for these? Hinge, for example, released some statistics that they're like HingeX users, which is one of their premium subscriptions, go on 3 times as many dates as those who don't. The Pew Research Center came out with a study back in 2023, looked at people who are dating online. It said those who are paying report higher satisfaction than those who don't. And so if we think about the potential that a relationship holds for us, and relationships we know are foundational to our happiness. The Harvard study of adult development followed humans for 90 years and looked at what really contributes to our happiness. And the single finding was the quality and health of our relationships. And so if paying $50 a month is going to increase the probabilities of finding that, then in some ways, I think like what better way to invest our money than in relationships? And this is can be a key place to do that. So I'd say if nothing else, ask yourself the question of, is it worth increasing the probability of me finding that? And what is that worth to me? And that number may be lower than the cost of a monthly membership, but I'm interested in having people run little dating experiments and thinking through this and saying, what am I doing right now? Is that working? And if the answer is no, what variables can I change to see if I can bring about a change in the results? And so it's an interesting experiment to run if you do have the money. And we're all situated differently financially, but you could try it for a month. Make sure that you put a little notice on your calendar, because I'm sure they're all subscription models, right? So they're gonna automatically bill you the next month, and just set something for 3 weeks down the road and say reevaluate. Did this change my dating experience for the better? If not, great. I spent $50 one month, didn't do
Right.
what I wanted. I'm happy to go, my other way. On the other hand, maybe you say, great, I did have a few more matches and I ended up going on another date. And maybe that wasn't the perfect person for me, but it's
Right.
something that I want to continue investing in. So I think it really is person specific.
Right.
I definitely encourage people to meet in person as much as possible, and at the same
Right.
time view apps as a worthwhile introduction technology.
Tim, I think you probably sold a lot of people. So Tim, you know what? I'd rather pay a matchmaker. And I know that's like outdated, but I'd rather work with someone like you, a professional. I don't know if you do matchmaking, but you create a profile for me. You hand me some resumes of some very good candidates based off what I'm looking for, and you've ran a background check on them. They are not just getting out of Rikers prison, which they can put anything on a dating app, right? You could be 6'10", muscular, no kids, work at Google, be a director. You could be whoever the hell you want to be on these dating apps. And when I meet you, you're 5'3", you weigh 800 pounds. Okay, you got 10 kids. three baby mamas. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, it's much easier to be whoever you want online than it is in person. But I wish I just had someone curate me a list. Like, you know what, Shelby? Here are five We're not going to give you more than five. You pick two and you go on dates with them. These are your top two out of the five. And we have vetted them and they are not serial killers. Maybe it won't work, but I'd rather pay more money for a matchmaker than I would for online dating. Maybe people in their 20s are more so in online dating and seeing it work for them. I also live in a city where I feel like there are more people in their 20s versus 30s that are single. And, you know, I have to personally, at almost 34, date somebody in a certain age range. I'm not going to date someone that's 22. So I'm also looking at it from that factor as well when it comes to money. So I don't mind paying more. I just want more honesty and truth behind it because, again, I don't know who you are on these dating. And trust me, I've seen dating apps. I've looked at it. I made an account for fun. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. Like everybody had a fish in their hand. First of all, I was concerned about that. Do you do any other activities besides fish and go to the gym? So I'm like, this is not for me. So yeah, I have a respect factor toward it. I think it makes it easy. We work a lot. We have work. We have health. We have family. We have friends. So dating online is convenient because all you got to do is left for no, right for yes. So it's easy. And yeah, if you pay more, you're going to get better matches. Of course, like the algorithm is built up, the software engineers have designed it. The more money you spend, the better matches you're going to get. So I can definitely see that happening. And you're right, you don't have to do it. You can try it 1 month and keep it moving. So yeah, that's my hot take. But Tim, what do you think about matchmaking? That's just dead, huh? Nobody does that anymore, right?
I think there's actually a revival of matchmaking for the exact reasons that you're talking about, which
Really?
is people are beginning to, one, just experience burnout and realize that dating has evolved so much that whether it be paradox of choice, ghosting, burnout, we are struggling. And this is in many ways more difficult than it's ever been. And at the same time, we're happy to spend money on things that we value. And so with businesses, we might get a business coach because we say there's going to be a great return on this investment, or there's at least a strong probability that I'm going to get a return on this money that I invested. Or if I want to learn guitar, then I'm going to go maybe take lessons for that. And so I think with dating, either getting a coach or a matchmaker is something that people are leaning into because they've gone so far down the personal development journey and they've become self-actualized in all of these ways. They've spent money,
Mhm.
they've invested time, and yet they haven't found that partner that they're really after. And now they're
Right.
saying, okay, well, in any other area of life, I would invest money to help try and solve this problem. And it's not saying that getting a matchmaker or a dating coach is a surefire way to do that. The same way
Right.
that we don't know if we take tennis lessons that we're going to be on the ATP tour, but we do know that there's a higher probability that we're going to be able to make this happen. Someone's going to ask us important questions to help us go through the self-discovery process that might
Right.
uncover some of our blind spots. So I think for certain people, it can be worth an investment. It's not for everybody, but
Right.
matchmaking in particular can be very expensive. But a lot of people,
Yeah.
recognize the value in it. And how do you put a number on being introduced to a person that you spend the next 60 years with?
Right.
It's hard to know, and of course there's not certainty around it, but I think it is an interesting option, and it is actually coming back into fashion more.
I agree. After watching the Matchmaker show on Netflix, I was like, this would be so helpful. Like the work is being done for you. All you have to do is go put effort into going on the dates. And so for me, I mean, like I said, I invest in a lot of other things, my career, my education, my health. I personally am on the side of I don't mind investing in a matchmaker. I feel like dating is tiring. It is does seem like a job to me. I love meeting people in person, but it doesn't happen the same way in the world we live in because things are so digital and people are afraid to speak more and say hi more, especially post pandemic. People are much more closed off. So, yeah, for me, I mean, if I found a reputable, reliable company that aligned with my values and could offer some good candidates, I mean, I would probably pay. I'm not gonna lie to you, Tim. But you said the main thing, the ROI, and that brings us to our last, the big question: is dating worth it? Is it worth the return on investment, Tim? What do you think?
I think investing in quality relationships is
Okay.
absolutely worth the ROI. And those can be really great friends, those can be family, those can be our volunteer communities, those can be a single monogamous partner. And so I think we know that our happiness, our fulfillment, our contentment, the quality of our time on this planet is shaped by the quality of our relationships. And so investing in those, I think, is always worth it. And yes, there are struggles unless we have some type of AI boyfriend or girlfriend where there's never any strife. We need to be willing to put ourselves out there in order to really get this, but it gives us a deeper feeling of purpose, and it's hard for me to imagine what a better ROI could be than that.
Well, Tim, you have definitely changed my mind in quite a few ways today when it comes to dating and just my viewership and what I think about it, and the effort that I could put in it in a variety and a curious standpoint. So thank you for that. I appreciate you going through all these topics. I think it was very informative, very educational. It was very helpful for me. So I can only imagine how helpful it'll be for our viewers as they listen. So guys, Tim, you've been amazing today. Before we wrap up, first, you have to get Tim's book, okay? Date Smarter, okay? It says, because finding love shouldn't be left to chance, a strategic guide to navigating modern romance. Tim Molnar, find it, grab it. Tim, where can people find the book? How can they contact you? How can they stay connected with you? Let us know. Give us the rundown.
So the book is sold anywhere people find books. You can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble. The best place to learn about me is to head over to my website, timothymolnar.com. You can check out my socials at Tim Molnar Dating. Shelby, thanks so much for having me on today. Thank you so much for the amazing questions, for everything that you're doing. You are just offering such an incredible value to the people in your community here. So please keep going with
Oh,
that. It's so
thank
lovely.
you, Tim. Like, I love having people like you on my show. You bring a lot of value and insight and fun and uniqueness and authenticity. So I cannot wait to start reading this book. I'm finishing up another book right now, but as soon as I'm done, I will finish this up and we're gonna have just like a fun like one-off call so I can like just talk more about the book with you because I think this was phenomenal and I appreciate it. Everybody, make sure you go and follow and support Tim. Check out his website, check out his business, hit him up with questions. Show love, show support. That is the best way for any entrepreneur to grow is by word of mouth and sharing the hustle and sharing the love. If you love what you heard today, definitely give this a 5-star review, share, subscribe, and tap in with your community and let them know that the hustle, the budget, and glow is shining and continuing. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Peace out, stay blessed, and have an amazing Saturday. Bye, everybody. And Tim, you stay on.